What is going on, guys? This is Jake at That Fit Friend, and today we're going to be quickly going over a pretty niche topic, and that is, can you wear weightlifting shoes on machines and for exercises outside of squats, clean and jerks, and snatches? So how versatile can this style of shoe be? We're going to talk about that in this video, and I'm going to explain some rationale as to how to implement weightlifting shoes in different contexts. But now let's dive in and answer the first and most basic question. What is a weightlifting shoe and why would we wear it in the first place? So before I answer what weightlifting shoes are, I will say I have put together an in-depth weightlifting shoe guide that is on the channel. Check that out if you're interested in all the nuances that come along with weightlifting shoes. But to keep it short, a weightlifting shoe is a style of shoe that has a very stable outsole and an elevated heel. This elevated heel will then put our foot into a plantar flex position, so a position where the heel is elevated above the toe before you start lifting and moving, etc. And what that is going to do is it's going to put the ankle into a position that better feeds into dorsiflexion. It doesn't necessarily increase dorsiflexion outright, but when you're squatting and you're having those knees track, having this elevated heel allows you to better track those knees and maintain a more upright torso position. So in the context of lower body training, weightlifting, etc., a lot of folks will opt for weightlifting shoes because in those sports and in a lot of different lower body movements, we want to have an upright torso position where we can maintain our balance, maintain loads over the midfoot, and a weightlifting shoe will assist with all of this. All right, so now that we've defined what weightlifting shoes are, let's talk about if you can wear them on machines. So when looking at weightlifting shoes and using them on machines, what I'm primarily talking about is like a hack squat, a leg press, basically any machine where you rely on a foot position to produce a lower body sequencing. So when we are talking about machines specifically in weightlifting shoes, I like to look at it from two different lenses. Number one is your anatomy and how the machine is built. And then number two, the adaptations you're after. So number one, your anatomy and how the machine is built. A great example here is like at my gym, there are 3 different hack squats. All of these hack squats are built slightly differently. Some are easier for me to get into positioning in, while others take a little bit more work to get the range of motion I'm after. So in this example, if a hack squats platform is a bit more vertical, it's very difficult for me generally to hit a full range of motion and allow my knees to track, because generally that machine's build may conflict with my anatomy, so my height, my limb lengths, etc. Another great example would be the leg press. So I'm 6 foot tall. My girlfriend is 5 foot tall. If we're looking at different leg presses and how we are trying to achieve different ranges of motion, having an elevated heel can be really beneficial if we're trying to hit an in range, allow those knees to track, or just hit a range of motion that is feasible for our body and how that machine is built. Now, when it comes to how to apply this to your training, what I would suggest is playing with a few different positions in your hack squat, your leg press, or whatever machine you're trying to use your weightlifting shoes on, and play with an elevated heel and then play with a flat foot position. See how each feels. And if you notice that, hey, it's a lot easier for me to, like, let's say, keep my hips and lower back grounded in the machine with an elevated heel, then you may want to use a weightlifting shoe for your training based on how that machine is built and your anatomy. Now, the second lens you can look at with weightlifting shoes on machines is the adaptations you're after. So more specifically, if we're trying to bias different muscle groups, then a weightlifting shoe can be a really useful tool for helping with that. So let's say I'm trying to bias my quads in a leg press or a hack squat. One thing I'm going to need to do is allow those knees to track to create a greater stretch on the quad. If having an elevated heel allows me to do this better, then a weightlifting shoe would be a really good option for this context. If I'm trying to bias the adductors and a weightlifting shoe's heel allows me to get those knees tracking, but to get the depth that I want to actually hit the adductors, so hitting that in range of motion in our squat patterning to where we're going to have more adductors assisting with hip extension, then a weightlifting shoe could be really useful. So that all being said, you can most certainly use weightlifting shoes on machines. I would suggest looking at it from a lens of how the machine is built and how that aligns with your anatomy and the adaptations you're after, because both of these, and when you tie them together, can really help drive when a weightlifting shoe is going to be most productive for your training. All right, so now that we've talked about using weightlifting shoes with machines, what about other movements like accessories like lunges and split squats? You can absolutely use weightlifting shoes for accessories as well. And when it comes to accessories and weightlifting shoes, I like to look at it purely from an adaptation point of view, because a weightlifting shoe in this context should be used to, one, drive your performance to be a bit more strong across the board, and two, set you up to be in better positions to hit the things you're after. So a great example here would be like, let's say we're doing a split squat and we're really trying to focus on the quads. In this context, we might not be able to get those knees to track over the toes to their fullest extent if we're not working with an elevated heel. An elevated heel will put us into a positioning where we can better achieve that greater stretch in the quads, that lengthened position to drive quad adaptations. So in this context, a weightlifting shoe could be a really useful tool for attacking this adaptation. If we're looking at, let's say, a walking lunge and we wear a weightlifting shoe, they may assist with the overall stability and balance we're creating in this movement, but we can then focus on how we're tracking and physically sequencing those knees when we're walking. So again, a weightlifting shoe can be a really dynamic tool and accessories as well. What I would say is to use one, your performance, and two, the adaptations you're after for guiding when you should opt for weightlifting shoes in your accessories. You don't necessarily always need them, but when we're talking about getting specific with some of the adaptations we're after, especially when it comes to biasing certain muscle groups based on our execution and setup in different movements, an elevated heel can be really useful for attacking those adaptations. All right guys, that wraps up this video talking about using weightlifting shoes for other contexts outside of just weightlifting and squatting. If you have additional questions on this topic, hit me in the comments below. I have also written an in-depth article discussing these topics. That's linked down below as well. But as always guys, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you.